All right, everybody, it's your Uncle Ed again. You like my shirt? Uncle Ed's
Love your
got a new
shirt.
shirt. Very good. By the way, guys, look, today is kind of one of those lessons in persistence, and I'm going to tell you why. For some reason, the universe has decided to give me email problems. So, but you know what? At the end of the day, nobody's dying, right? So you got to have to kind of pick and choose your battles. Are you going to worry about things that you have no control over? Uncle Ed says, don't do that. There's no point in it. Why give yourself the stress? Life is already short as it is. Do not shorten it anymore. So, on that note, in this episode, we're going to talk about your health. Yep, that's exactly right. I cover and tackle a lot of topics, but I think this one particularly is really, really hits home for me. And I'm going to tell you why. I've lost a lot of people in the last, let's call it 60 months. By the way, it's north of 40, if you can believe that. And some of these have been health issues and cancer and that sort of thing. If you've seen some of my posts, you know that I recently lost a very dear and close cousin who was my age. And look, this guy took care of himself. He really did. But today we're going to talk about what does that look like, right? What does taking care of yourself look like? And we're going to also dissect this whole premise of in order to help others, you have to first help yourself, right? In order to take care of others, you first have to take care of yourself. It's called being selfless, not selfish. Very different. So today I have a wonderful lecturer. You're going to love her. And that's Cheri Sachs. And we're going to talk right now because she is the expert in this field. She's a health and wellness coach. And maybe you've heard of that term and maybe you have not, but she's got decades of experience. And so we're going to garner some of that experience and some of that wisdom today so that you can make some changes. And by the way, the changes don't have to be humongous. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. At least you get yourself started into a lifestyle. I do not like the term diet
Mhm.
because it already implies it being temporary. It's lifestyle, right? Your whole life. What are we going to do today? And by the way, yes, today, like you could change things right now. Doesn't have to be massive. Start one little step, one foot in front of the other. So, on that note, help me welcome Cheri Sachs. Cheri, thank you so much for making time out of your busy day to come and chat with us and give us some wisdom and give us even more importantly some guidance. What do we need to be doing? Tell us first. Tell us about yourself and your kind of origin story. And how did you get even into this? Because health and wellness coaches, you don't hear that term a lot.
No, and it's funny. I never considered myself a health and wellness coach. I always considered myself a nurse first and foremost, and I still do. I worked in the hospital for a long time on the East Coast and found my way to California and started at a company doing disease management. And disease management, actually, now a lot of insurance companies have it, but they didn't at the time. And so we helped teach people about their conditions, whether it was heart failure, high blood pressure, asthma, and I specialized in diabetes and cardiovascular conditions. So I became a diabetes educator and learned about lifestyle and the importance of lifestyle through that. And then I started educating people in the healthcare field, health, and they became health coaches and what we now know as population health. And the health and wellness culture has sort of taken off since 20 years ago when I started. And fast forward, and I'm sorry for your losses. It's not
Thank
easy.
you.
I've had some
Yeah,
losses
it isn't.
too. Yeah, and it changes your whole perspective when you start looking at life and what you want to do, right? And how you want to live, because you can either live with that grief or take it forward, and try to make the world a better place and carry on the legacy of the people who are no longer here, right? And so that brought me to where I was today. I am today. And that is a health and wellness coach, helping people really find balance in their lives and understanding that the way that they feel impacts their health and their outside stress impacts their health. And even things like, not being able to get on the internet and your email not working, right? That impacts your health. It could raise your cortisol, or you could just sort of go with the flow and keep everything even and realize it's not that big a deal. We'll get through it and just move on. And it's all in the way you look at it, right?
Yeah, it really is, right? Everything is really perspective. What's the old saying is that your perspective is your reality.
Yeah.
So the question is, what is your reality, right? Is your reality that everything is a emergency and a fire,
Yeah.
right? Most things are not, by the way. If you really take an inventory of your life, you'll realize that a lot of the things that you initially considered to be an emergency was never an emergency, right? So, what are some of the things that you tell people as a first steps to start incorporating taking care of themselves as a lifestyle?
It's really find one thing. Sometimes it's taking that deep breath, right? Like my email isn't working. Let me just take a deep breath and reset, right? And it brings your blood pressure down, brings your cortisol level down. And that's enough to get you thinking about how to problem solve. Because when you're in that anxiety and that stress, you can't really think. And it kind of snowballs, and then you don't make the best decisions. I mean, for email, it's not life changing, right? But when you're in that fight or flight, you're just thinking about how to save yourself. You're not thinking about all of the implications that come to it. So sometimes that's the first thing. Other times it's what does the person really want to focus on? Is it sleep? Well, then let's talk about good sleep habits. Is
Hmm.
it their blood sugars and how they're feeling? Let's talk about, I'm going to use the word diet because it's really their nutritional plan, but it's what people are eating. And is there one thing that's really easy to eliminate or to decrease or to change one ingredient to make a huge difference? And so it's finding that one thing and then building on it, going for going for those little successes.
Yeah, I love that. And that's the proverbial eating the elephant one step at a time. I think the very first thing is just like what I tell people with their finances, right? Write down everything that you spend on for 30 days. Just do it.
Yeah.
Same thing. What are you eating? Write down all your habits, everything you eat, how many times a day you eat, and then find out what are the things that bring you joy, minus the donuts and all the other junk, right? But maybe you could find healthy alternatives, right? Maybe you can take a cooking class. How about that? And learn how to cook some really yummy stuff that you really
Yeah.
love, but cook it with different type of ingredients, right? Maybe more organic, less sugar, all these things, right? But it's all about, I'm a big believer in taking inventory and inventory in all aspects of your life, your finances, your health, right? Your way of thinking. Because, right now, things like AI and social media is taking up so much of people's gray matter that I think it's really time for you to take an inventory of what is the stuff I'm ingesting, not just here, but here. What are you watching, right? What are you reading? What
Yeah.
are you attending? What are you occupying your brain with and your soul with? Is it feeding you or is it bringing toxins into your life, right? Same thing goes with people. Who are the people you're hanging out with? Are you hanging out with the right people who are feeding you, or are you hanging out with people who are very toxic that are draining your finances, your emotions, your soul, your brain, your intelligence, all that stuff, right? It's really important to take inventory for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, and I love that, Ed. And so often, we just take things for granted or we just do something out of habit and we don't realize it. A chip here or there is fine, right? But a bag of chips is different. And if we're going through a bag of chips, it may become a habit. Every night we're doing it, but we don't realize over time what that really means. Right. And so
Yeah.
it's that inventory that's really important. How much sugar am I consuming a day? A teaspoon of sugar in your morning coffee probably isn't going to be that detrimental. But over time, if you're adding sugar to the rest of your day, and sugar comes in those sneaky forms too, right? Then that becomes a problem. And then that's where your calories increase. And then we find ourselves, oh, caught in that diet loop and that, I need to
Yeah.
lose weight, right?
Yeah. And lethargy too. You
That
start
they're,
to get exhausted, right?
yeah,
Yeah, I'm actually rereading it. And, sometimes when you watch a movie the second time around, you see more things. Same thing with books, you capture more stuff. I'm reading the book Atomic Habits right now. And wow, I mean, look, habits are powerful. And sometimes we have habits we don't even realize are habits because they're on automatic pilot. Let me give you an example. Did you count the number of steps it took you this morning to get into your car? Probably not, right?
yeah,
There's, I think, something like 273 steps a human takes to get into a car. Like bizarre, right? I know. Things that we just don't think about, like when you're going to work, you're like all of a sudden you're there. You're like, wow, I don't even know how I got here because it's so automatic, right? Be careful with the ones that are bad habits that are also automatic, right? Which ones are those are draining you? Because when you're drained emotionally, I don't know about you guys, but when I'm drained emotionally, it's way worse than being drained physically. It
Hmm.
drags everything down. So it's super important to hang out with the right people and to ingest, right, the right content that feeds you, as opposed to just really gets you down and really pulls you down, right? Very, very important. Any kind of habits that you feel are important to start when you're looking to make some lifestyle, and I'm going to call them tweaks so
Okay.
that they don't sound like monstrous changes? Any
Yeah.
any habits that you teach your clients to do?
There's no right place to start
Yeah.
because for some people things are easier. Some people it's easier like to park in a parking spot further away and walk that extra 100 steps, right? Like that's really easy for them. For other people that's really difficult. And so you would want to start with something else. And it doesn't matter what it is, as long as you take that first step. Right. And that you're examining and thinking about that loop that you're going through of what is it? What am I doing? And what am I actually changing? Right? Because if you have a success in changing one little thing and tweaking one little thing, it's going to lead to more success, right? You start changing your mindset because then it's like, oh, I did this. I can do something else. I can do that next thing, as opposed to,
Mm,
oh, I gave up. I didn't do it today, so I gave up. I'll start again tomorrow, or maybe I just won't start at all. So,
it's
so I don't.
true. And success and these little wins create consistent momentum, don't they?
Mhm.
Because one builds upon the other. When you're feeling really good about something, you keep doing it, right? That's why
Yeah.
I always say live in your DOT. And that means the intersection of what you're good at and what you love. Typically, that creates a flywheel effect because you get better at it because you love it, right? So you want to rinse and repeat. It almost comes with that rinse and repeat mechanism already embedded into it. Are there any books that you also recommend?
Oh, I have a ton of books. I'm a big fan of behavior change, so I read a lot of Daniel Pink and things like that.
Daniel
I'm just
Pink.
talking about
Okay.
Daniel Pink, talking about motivation. I think he even has a new one out. But it's on how to change thoughts and motivate people to move forward just a little bit. Just like nudge, right? Like nudge was a
Yeah.
big book a long time ago, just to nudge people forward and support them because it's those dopamine drops. Everybody's talking about dopamine now, right? Like if you have that success and you have that dopamine hit, it's like, okay, I can do this again. And you really can, right? And you just have to keep building on it. And maybe some days you don't do it, but then the next day you can kick in again and get that little dopamine hit of saying, yes, I walked. Maybe it's not 10,000 steps. Maybe it's 1,000 for people who have
Mm,
difficulty walking, right?
right.
But that's still a success and it still needs to be celebrated.
Yeah. And you guys have all heard this, but I'm gonna say it again. I'm just gonna look at it right into the camera. Look, why would you do all this? Because you're worth it. That's
Yeah.
why. Yeah, it's just simple as that.
Yeah.
You're worth it. You know
And
how
you
many
feel
people, if you
better.
were to really take inventory, really love you, maybe
Mhm.
that's the first step is take an inventory of all the people that love you, that
Yeah.
without you being around would be a huge bummer
Yeah.
to not have you around, that they would be the first ones to really be hurt. Like you would be gone, but how about the people who are left behind, right?
Yeah.
You do it for them. Like I call it the why, right? Why do you
Right.
do what you do? I say anchor it to those people, the people that love you that would absolutely be crushed if you were not here, right?
Oh,
Anchor it to them.
absolutely. One of the first things you do is you're working, the fancy term is behavior change, right? We're trying to change people's behavior. It sounds really scary. It sounds much better when you talk about tweaks, right?
That's true.
But one of the things is, you ask people, what's your goal? Why, especially for people coming to see me, why are you here? But then it goes beyond that. What's motivating you to be here, which is what you're talking about. And oftentimes it comes down to some family event. I want to go to a family reunion. I want to see my daughter dance at her wedding, which is next year. And so it's something tangible that's far enough out, but it's family related and connection related, right? And again, it brings that happiness. And it's what life is about. Life should be happy, right? It goes back to what you were saying.
Agreed. And ultimately, if you distill it, it really comes down to love.
Yeah.
That's it. It really comes down to love makes all the difference. I know it sounds cheesy, and here we go, right? This isn't meant to be a rom-com movie, but it's true. At the end of the day, that's the sweetness of life. So, Cheri, on that note, walk us through your process of when you onboard a brand new client. Would
Oh, yeah.
just walk us through kind of the steps so that they get an idea of how this all works with you.
Yeah, thanks for asking. It's actually super easy. It's kind of like the conversation we're having now. So the first thing I do is talk to somebody. I find out really what's motivating them to make sure that it's a good fit, that my personality matches their personality, because some people need different types of support. And so I want to make sure that the support I offer is the support that they need. And so when that happens and we're moving forward, then, they'll sign out some forms. I'll collect a health history. I look at all of their medicines that they're on and make sure that there's no interactions, because so many times different doctors prescribe different things, or somebody doesn't think of about a supplement. So I run all of that information through a little database just to make sure that we're starting with the person being in their healthiest spot. And if not, then I'll have them call their doctor and work on some of the problems that they may find. And then we just start talking. I have a path framework that I use. It's personalization. It's acknowledging and kind of doing an assessment that we were talking about. And then really the T is for transformation and making those little changes which lead to health. So that's the path framework. And each week we talk about what's happening where they are, what roadblocks they hit. Maybe we need to see how they're feeling and adjust something. If they're starting a walking program and their knee hurts, maybe they need to change what they're doing, right? So we'll work through all of that one-on-one. And plus I handhold them, right? Like I'm their friend. I get pictures in the grocery store and saying which ingredient is better or whatever it is, right? I'm a health coach and a nurse. I'm not a doctor, so I can't prescribe. I don't prescribe nutrition information. I always refer out to that, but I can support people where they are when they need it the most. So yeah, so
That's
that's
excellent. Okay, great. So, and then of course you do know nutritionists, right? That you can work in conjunction with, right? Somebody like an Alicia that we both know would be
yeah,
an
I was gonna
example.
say Alicia,
Yeah,
yeah, it's my
yeah,
go-to.
perfect, perfect. Well, here's my ultimate question to you: how do people get a hold of you so that they
Oh,
can just at least have an initial consultation with
yeah, so my business is called Chronic Health Wisdom. You can find me at Cheri, Cheri, at chronichealthwisdom.com. And you can find me on Instagram, LinkedIn. I'm your neighbor, the nurse. Think of me that way.
you? Nice.
And yeah, love to hear from whoever
Yeah,
wants to chat with me.
that would be great. Tell us about that QR code that shows up. Is that your contact also?
That is my contact. That is for my
Okay.
website, chronichealthwisdom.com.
Excellent. So you can just literally just scan her QR code, goes right to her website. Give her a call today. Make those changes. Start, at least just start, right? Just get it going,
You
right?
got to
Little
start.
things,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely, because you deserve to feel your best. Coming
100%.
out of grief when I wasn't able to feel good, right? Like, but little things you have to do to take care of yourself. You have to
Yeah.
eat, you have to sleep, you have to, get out and
Move, exercise. They say
right.
motion is lotion.
Yeah, and it just starts, right? When you take care of yourself just a little bit, it starts that ball rolling. So you don't have to be healthy, you don't have to be bubbly. All you need to do is start. So.
There you go. All you need to do is start. So start today. Contact Cheri. Thank you so much for your time. Really enjoyed it. Got a lot out of it. You gave me a lot of things to think about because look, even though I prescribe to that kind of lifestyle, there's always things you could be learning and changing as well. Again, this is long game. So here's what I say. It doesn't matter what happened in your past. Finish strong. That's what's important. Have a great day, everybody. And thank you again, Cheri. Take care.
Bye.